everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pleasant and Purposeful Torah, live with Rabbi Pinchas Levin in Wisconsin. It's always a joy to be with him. He means a lot to me, and the messages he shares from Torah always mean a lot to me. Now, tonight he's picked a unique topic. He's called this the truth of truth, and I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. I'm sure he's got a unique angle he wants to share. So let's not delay. Let's just jump right in and see how the rabbi's doing. Rabbi Levin, how are you tonight, sir? You got the mic. I'm going to try my best to be silent. It's a very hard thing for me to do, but when you speak, I'm listening. So the floor's yours, sir.
Hi, Dan. Thank you. I will try, but I might need you to take over after a while because this is a difficult topic.
The truth of truth.
The true truth. And
the true truth.
The true truth. It sounds like here comes another rabbi to tell everybody that they got it wrong. Everyone's making a huge mistake, and I'm the only one who knows the real truth. The truth you think is true is missing in the truth, but I'm going to tell you the true truth. Doesn't it sound like that? Well, in a sense it is, but really it's not. Really, the purpose of tonight's lesson is to do something which another mission impossible. I described it in Facebook. I wrote like this: isn't it incredible how the truth is so clear? Like to most people, they have certain things in their life that they have no doubt this is absolutely the truth. And yet, there's multitudes of people out there that just don't seem to get what you know to be absolutely true. Like, what's wrong with everybody? Why don't they get it? This is the truth. Why is that? And you'll find many issues, especially nowadays, that on both sides of the issues, you'll have people talking very derisive about the other side, like they're crazy, they're idiots, they're wicked, they just don't get the simple scientific data truth. This is a fact. And what is wrong with all these people? And it's really amazing to hear the discussions back and forth. And what we're going to try to do tonight is really mission impossible, is to validate both sides of the argument. How could it be? But both of them are saying the other one is clearly not true. So what is the true truth? The concept of true truth, let me just a prelude. I'm not making up this concept. It's actually in the Talmud, in Tractate Shabbos 10a. You can look it up. And it says as follows. This is the statement of our sages. It says, and this is expounded on at length in our commentaries. It says, any judge, kol dayan, any judge who judges a din emes la'amita, a judgment that is the true truth, not just regular truth, but true truth. When he does that, listen to this, there's a biggie. Then it's as if, now whenever we say as if, it needs an explanation. This as if doesn't make any sense. We have to explain what it means. But it's as if he becomes a partner with the Holy One, blessed be he, in the creation of the world. Well, that's pretty cool. How do you like to be a partner with God in creating the world? Well, all you got to do is make your judgments to not be regular truth, but true truth. And then we're all set. We're going to be partners with God. That's great. That's the kind of partner you want. So how do we get, what is the regular truth and what is the true truth, and how do we get there?
Is it a cut and dry path?
No. You think it's going to be easy? We're going to change everybody just like that?
Oh, Rabbi, I've known nothing but trial and error, and then I have to repent, and I have to ask for direction. And
my pleading to you, Dan, and to the Noahite world, again, I want to raise you guys up on a pedestal, that really any Noahite who has been in Christianity, and you've lived many of you, if not all of you, have lived a great portion of your life thinking, believing, and even teaching others what you knew to be absolutely true. This is truth. This is our Savior. This is our salvation. This is the truth. We gotta believe in this God that had relations with a married woman and had a baby, and his blood on a cross is what's going to save you from sin. You got to believe that, or you get eternal damnation, and that is the absolute truth. And people spend their lives believing that and teaching that without any doubt until you've all come to the recognition that it was a bunch of baloney. It isn't at all truth. However, what happens very often, with Noachites, anyone leaving Christianity, is they could spend a very large part of the life going over and over again about how evil and not true that stuff is. Like all the anti-missionaries and Tanakh talk, you hear all these rabbis, they're bad, they mistranslated this word and they're doing this wrong and everything's so bad about them. And you can get back into that same rut, which I want to wake you up. Don't get into that rut now of thinking, guess what? Now I'm a know-it-all. I used to think one thing, and I realized that was all a big mistake, and I had to change my whole life. But now I got it straight, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know what they're talking about, but I got it straight. Many Noachites fall into that trap. So I'm just a little introspection. Let's look at your history. I think come a little humility. Could it be that there's a big mistake here? So I'm going to share with you many examples in life, and I share with you two explanations of what it means, true truth, and we're going to try to validate both sides. Now, about Christianity and Judaism itself, I've told you before my first encounter with a missionary. Remember that story? It's like 6 years ago now, where this Christian missionary came over to me and showed me, he says, you believe in the Bible? Well, you only got half the story. Look in Isaiah. And she showed me, and Isaiah talks about the virgin birth. And I was so taken aback by that, and because my whole life is truth-seeking. And if it actually said it in Isaiah, that there will be a virgin birth for the Messiah, my goodness, let's go. Christianity all the way. I mean, whatever the truth is. That's what we were raised. We want to do the truth. So I was really taken aback by it. I went home and I looked up in my Tanakh, and I saw that it doesn't say that at all. And I was really shocked. I started looking and finding, and I went online. I found Rabbi Singer, and I went back to this missionary. Not just once. I went back many, many times. And I went back with this simple purity, like, I'm going to show her it's a mistake, and she's going to leave this Christian stuff. It doesn't say that. You thought it said, but it doesn't say that. And we had many, many discussions back and forth. And every time I'm really thinking, my goodness, why can't you? I'm going to show her the truth, and then she's going to say, I guess you're right. I made a mistake. Thank you. And admit to the truth. But as you can imagine, it never happens. And this has been the thorn in my side all the times, because she's such a wonderful, and it's not just one. I've had quite a few encounters like this, really wonderful people. And it boggles the mind. Why don't you get it? Why aren't you getting it? It's so clear, as every Noachite knows now. Well, the next stage of my life was I studied in depth all the back and forth, the missionaries and the counter missionaries, the back and forth of it. Mm-hmm. And I started to see that don't get me wrong, Dan. I love all the rabbis who are counter missionaries. However, I've asked them some really strong questions. You're fighting the missionaries and putting them down, and everything they're saying is wrong. And for sure, you're right. There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, there's a little dishonesty of you. There's some things in the claims that they're making that we're not getting. We're not addressing it right. One example I had is the blood atonement. I like to bring that example because I've asked big counter missionaries about this. That the Christians claim that we can only have atonement through blood. And the counter missionaries show us throughout the Bible, because, we only stick to Scripture, that's simply not true. And you have the back and forth about it, really fascinating. I've heard it 1,000 times. But at the end of the day, as I've asked these counter missionaries, although the Christians are dead wrong, 100%, it's ridiculous. God's a vampire, wants your blood. But at the end of the day, it is our oral tradition that our atonement is dependent on blood. Not like they're saying it, but it's not like the counter missionaries are saying it either. And there's some message here from God, what the true truth is, that nobody's addressing that. They're so involved in the other one being wrong and I'm right, that they're not even hearing there's something behind the scenes here. Why are there millions of people screaming that we need blood atonement? God runs this world. And it's such an insanity to think that God wants blood. So what is going on? And I have really important lessons explaining the beauty and the depth of what blood atonement is, what the true message is from God about this. But that's a perfect example where you could have each one seeing a little bit of truth in what they're saying and arguing, but nobody's getting to the true truth. In our tradition in Judaism, the word for falsehood is sheker. Sheker is written shin kuf resh. They both have one leg. And falsehood has one leg to stand. It's not solid, but there's a little bit of truth behind it. And I'm going to share with you something else really important about what we're seeing before our eyes in the world. There's a lot of hatred going on. Did you notice that? A lot of hatred.
I try to avoid it.
Arguments and hatred everywhere. And sometimes I just want to crawl into a cave and let me out of here. The world's gone crazy. So much hatred. Well, the different categories of hatred we've discussed before, the only hatred that's actually not only permitted, but it's actually a mitzvah to have the hatred, is the hatred that most people are ascribing to, which is the hatred for falsehood. And what they're saying is, those people, that group, they're evil, wicked, false, and I hate them. And I should hate them because they're wicked and false and evil. But they're saying the same thing about you. That's the problem. So this really powerful... It
goes round and round and round.
It's a righteous indignation, and it's coming from a good place. You need to be fiery about the truth. Like if somebody would approach your child and try to convince them that there's no God or a Scientology, I don't know, something ridiculous. Go to some country and stand on your head and worship a monkey. So please, what are you doing to my kid? And you would do everything in your power to stop him from doing that. You're destroying my children's life. Stop doing that. And that's how people have that. Well, we're supposed to be loving and kind, but not to that. That has to stop no matter what. And that's how people feel like this president has to be stopped. That president, that movement has to be stopped. They're evil. They're evil. It's coming from a good place. The problem is, what's the real truth? And here, the quagmire that we're in, do you know that word? The quagmire that we're in is that on both sides, there's a lot of really beautiful people. And if you wouldn't be discussing this specific issue, which makes them blow up like in flames, they would have been really nice people. But suddenly, when you talk about this topic, they're full of righteous indignation. Oh, they're evil. I hate them. And it's like you're talking to a brick wall. So you have to think about this. What is going on and why?
Oh, deep breath, Rabbi. Deep breath.
Well, I'm going to share with you something now very personal. I've never shared this with anyone, I don't think. One of the most difficult days of my life. You know, I tell everybody how unique I am and how wonderful I am because I used to be really successful, and I was. In the highest level of teaching Torah in the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem, I was teaching on the highest level to learn whole tractates in depth and practical. It was really amazing. I did that for 7 years, very successfully. I have many, many students. But I don't like telling people of my tremendous failure, and I'm going to tell you today. It's pertinent to the lesson. I really relate to what's going on in the world. After my cancer treatment and my year in Johannesburg recovering, I came back to Israel. And I came back to my students and my group in the Mir Yeshiva. At the time, they were doing really well. One of my students was running it, and I came back like I'm the leader. So I took it over. It was actually a wonderful year. That year in Israel, I was back in Israel. You know what I did that year? Most of my income, my main job then, which was a tremendous success before I put myself down, my tremendous success there was I was the rabbi in an old age home. I found such satisfaction doing that. I went to an old age home where half of them were American, half were Israeli, and I would teach them. I would teach in Hebrew and in English, helping them appreciate just the basics of life. Because here they are, on their later years of life feeling like there's just nothing, no purpose in it, just to watch some entertainment, let the day go by with no goal. And I was bringing beauty and depth and purpose into every single part of their being. So it was a great part of my life, tremendous satisfaction there. Actually, when I came here to Wisconsin, I was in the synagogue once, and I was talking to a little girl. We were purifying our vessels for Passover, and this woman says to me, "Are you Rabbi Levin?" I said, "Yeah, why?" She says, "Were you the rabbi in the old age home in Jerusalem?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "I visited there once. My mother's there. I visited once, and I went to one of your lessons. It was really amazing." So that's a small world after all. How do you like that? So anyway, during this 1 year of my life, where I was back in my teaching job in Mir, it wasn't going well. And the reason it wasn't going well is I had this change. I changed. After my cancer, I started to realize, life is short and everything we're doing is purposeful. And I started teaching lessons that were much more pertinent to our daily lives, whatever we were studying. I made it pleasant and purposeful. Even if we were studying laws that were very, theoretical, I would show how it's applicable to our daily lives. And my students weren't so into that. They wanted what's done in the yeshiva world is they study laws, even though it has nothing to do with your life. It's just for the sake of knowing the laws. And they weren't into my lessons. And one day, this was one of the most difficult days of my life, a few of my prize students, in a very respectful way, took me aside and impeached me.
Ooh.
I was fired. I was told that nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And I went home that day and I cried pretty much 3 days straight. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it.
Rabbi.
That level of rejection, when you're working your whole life for something and you're finally up there, then the people they're students, and that level of rejection. So I've mentioned this before about the suffering servant in Isaiah. This is about the Messiah, but it's for any Jewish leader. One of the reasons for suffering and for people rejecting you and putting you down, as the Messiah will be, is so that we can relate to other people. And I do think, in a certain aspect, I know you're going to be upset at me for saying this, but I do think in a certain aspect, I am the most hated human being in the world. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I mean, my beliefs, I'll tell you exactly why. From the Jewish people, I've had terrible backlash from the ultra-religious of how can I be a rabbi? This is part of why I love this synagogue so much where I am in Mequon. How can you be the rabbi in a synagogue that doesn't do everything exactly the way we're supposed to be doing? And I've heard this from countless people, and my answer to them is because I'm the rabbi of them according to who they are. They're not at that level, so I'm guiding them according to who they are. But that's not acceptable by the ultra-religious. You do it our way or the highway. It's got to be everything just like them. So the multitudes of the ultra-religious scorn me, and I've had terrible backlash from it. And you can imagine the other direction. Pretty much all secular Jews, I think our synagogue is an anomaly. All secular Jews are not into our synagogue here because my congregants are such beautiful people. Whatever we do, we should do it the right way. We're not into this New Testament of the conservative and reform. They made up a new religion based on what? I mean, if we're going to do it, we do it the right way. Not everyone's holding by doing everything. But what we do, the rabbi tells us how to do it, and they respect me, my guidance of how to eat kosher, how to do the prayer service. They follow what I say, which is really incredible. It's really an incredible combination of qualities which you're not going to find. I think we're a very unique congregation with such a perfect shidduch being here. But just as an example of how pretty much the whole Jewish world, I get from all sides, how I'm not doing it like them, not doing it like them. Wow. And it's not just that. I've had here also in America, as you may well know, we have this presidential election coming up, and there's tremendous hatred and scorn and negativity towards both sides. So half of America, most of my congregants, are very negative towards me, not because I'm pro, but because I don't hate Mr. Trump. I actually see him as a wonderful person. If he should be president or not, I don't know. We have to still work that out. But most people can't take, like, what is wrong with you, Rabbi? Why don't you hate him? How can you think he's a good person? How can you see anything good about him at all? He's the devil himself. And on the other side, which many, the other half of America, which happen to exist, is I happen to think that Mr. Biden is also a wonderful man, and he has a great plan of how to develop America to be a higher level. It's amazing. Of course, there's faults on both sides, but I see them as great people. So anyone on the Republican side hate, like, what is wrong with you? Can't you see how terrible they are? And each side, if I would just speak out my opinion in a positive way, I'm knocked down. How dare you think like that? And I've had negativity from all sides about having a positive opinion about both. So it's, in a sense, what I'm trying to express today is actually that everybody's wrong and I'm the only one who's right. But what I'm right about is that everybody's right. Can you see the paradox here? What I'm right about is everyone stop putting down each other. We have to start seeing the beauty in each other, which I'm going to tell you now. This is the definition of the true truth.
Wow.
So let me tell you two explanations of the true truth. It's quite incredible. I'll give you examples of it. The two explanations given in the commentators in Jewish law. This is brought down in Jewish law, how a judge needs to judge the true truth, not just regular truth. What does that mean? One explanation is, which is very, very common, that a judge could hear the evidence, and it's pretty clear one way, and he could just judge what seems to be the truth, without actually examining all the evidence to the nth detail. Like, who has the time for all that? Let's just take it. Seems like a clear video. The knee was on the neck, and that's it. Let's put him to death. What we see, it's very clear. It's very clear. We have in front of us evidence. So why do I need to search further? Let's just judge based on what it seems to me. So I have studies about this medicine. I have studies about the face mask. I have studies about whatever it may be. And this is accepted, and everyone agrees to it. And superficially, it looks 100% right. So this is called emes, but it's not lamita. It's truth, but not the true truth. Of course, it's truth. What you're saying is truth. There are these studies, and it is accepted by many people. Okay, but there is more to investigate. And there's an incredible amount of laziness in this investigation not to get to the true truth, because you have an aspect of truth. All these news stations, I know people make fun of them. They're fake news. But the truth is, almost all of them, there are some exceptions, but usually they're quoting something that's true, and then they're bringing their opinion to it. But they're basing it on something true. So it's not completely not true, but it's not the true truth. So I'll give you an example. It's sheker, and that's not the complete truth. There is aspects of truth in it, and there's something we need to wake up to. So now I'm talking about those who don't investigate fully, and I want to give you examples of this, which I had just today, and it blows my mind. God privileged me to have a lot of good connections, just what I need. So I have a very close friend who's a well-respected, prominent doctor, and I have another friend who's a prominent, well-respected, what's it called, in media, a newspaper editor. And just today, I had a discussion with both of them about, it's not have to go, the details aren't important, but about certain studies which are accepted in the world, that these studies are facts and 100%, and therefore they come to their conclusion. And they're fire and brimstone against any other opinion. So I asked them, did you see the studies inside? Did you see that these studies aren't conclusive? They're not even addressing what we're discussing over here. And if you'll actually listen to those who argue on those studies, you'll see that they're not applicable at all. And it's amazing. Like it's exactly what you would get from a Christian missionary, this cognitive, what's it called?
Dissonance? Cognitive dissonance.
Totally like blocked off. The response from both this prestigious doctor and prestigious newspaper editor was, what I'm quoting, what they're quoting to me are accepted medical or media studies. This is the accepted, and they don't need to investigate any further. There's no need for it. I don't even have to look at what it says anywhere else, because they definitely, these are the experts, they did their studies, we can trust them. It's like, of course, all the church fathers, they know the Bible, and they said this is true. Why would I want to question maybe it doesn't say virgin? Why would I do that? There's thousands, millions of people that say it says virgin. Who am I to start questioning? And it's amazing because these are the professionals. Here's a doctor, and he's taking full responsibility that what it says in these studies is true. Who am I? I know nothing, but I looked at the studies inside, and it didn't say what you're quoting. It's not even on point. It's not related at all. It's quite shocking. And I asked him, could you show me even one case on the point that we're discussing where it says not like these other doctors, whatever it is, and no answer to that. So I'm like bewildered. This is a perfect example of what you're saying is truth. There is truth to it, but it's not the true truth, because you didn't do the investigation to the end. Why didn't you? There's a certain laziness, I don't know where it's from, or a haughtiness, where we got the truth. There's no need for it. It's so clear. It's absolutely clear. The biggest experts say this. All the news stations say this. All the newspapers say it. Why would I bother investigating anymore? And that's one of the things we're admonished for. You need to go deeper. Please look into it. A little respect for the other side. Instead of calling everybody else names and saying they're missing, they don't know data and science.
Right.
I mean, they're not all evil people. We're talking about major, wonderful people. Many of them lost their jobs because of what they're saying. And if you'll just listen to what they say, maybe there's some truth in it. But the mainstream won't even listen. I'm not interested. Like the missionary, I don't want to hear this. I know for a fact there was a virgin birth. How do you know? It's in millions of Bibles. Take a look. All the priests say so. It's for thousands of years. What do you think? It wasn't virgin birth. It says explicitly. Of course there was. And that's the same cognitive dissonance that's going on in this side. They're not going to. That's one explanation for not going deeper. For not the true truth. There's truth to what they're saying, but it's not the true truth. Now, they're saying that all the other doctors, all the other people that are saying differently, like the Christians say about the Jews, they're evil, they're possessed. That's why they're not getting their truth, which is superficial. Now I'm going to talk about the other side, the other explanation of the true truth, which is the really, really difficult one. Being a Jew, how can I validate anything in Christianity when I know it's not true? Or in this case I gave you, where I looked at the studies and I see that they're wrong. How can I validate them in any way? This is what I was breaking my head all day about. So I'm going to share with you another explanation for the true truth, which the commentators say. There's a basic level of truth, which is here and now. We just look at the circumstances. This has to do with our lesson last week of Gog and Magog. There's a basic level, the here and the now of the truth, the way it seems now. However, in a bigger picture, sometimes the truth can be a little bit different. If you'd see the big picture, then you would view that little aspect, what you thought is absolute truth, you'd see it differently. But you're not seeing the big picture. You're looking too isolated. That's one of the explanations given in Jewish law. Mm-hmm. You have to take into account all kinds of circumstantial evidence, see the big picture, exactly what's going on before you decide just on the actual evidence. You have to, that concept of seeing a big picture. And that I'd like to share. I know from my contacts on social media, there's a lot of people in both camps, a lot of people full of anger at each side. So the side that are full of anger about these deviants who are against the virus, the vaccines, they're against the masks, they're against this, they're pro the hydrochloroquine, all these evils out there. And instead of just putting them down, how about hearing what they say and investigating? Maybe there's some truth into what they're saying about all these things. I'm not saying absolute truth, but instead of just dismissing it without even looking at it, true truth needs deep investigation. We have to go to the end, look at their studies, and then examine it. Now, in the other direction, which to me is much more difficult, because my nature is to do the investigation until the end. And when I have the clarity of truth, I look at the other people like, you're all crazy. What is wrong with you? Just look at the studies. Like I told this doctor and the editor, what is wrong with you? The studies, you're quoting it wrong. Read it inside. Like I told the missionary, like I told the doctors and the editors. So it's really hard for me to follow the other guidelines, which is to see the big picture. And this I'd like to suggest. I've listened to on all these various issues going on in the world, whether it's Trump, whether it's masks, whether it's vaccines, whether all these various issues which are so controversial. The response of the doctors and media and rabbis on that side is, this will blow your mind, Dan, but their response is that the other side, who are not looking at the data, they're cutting everybody else. What's the word? There's censorship. They don't even want to hear what you have to say. That's coming from pure evil. I'm serious. I've heard this from many rabbis and doctors and media, that the other side that aren't interested in hearing, they know the data and the science, that's coming from pure evil. That's the response they have. And I'm looking at them, but how could it be? I know these people. They're not evil. They're wonderful people. I understand maybe they're a little bit lazy. They don't want to look at the data and the science, but they're not bad and evil. So how could it be? How could it be that they're not looking and they're not hearing it? Clearly, there's something bigger going on here. And this message I like to share. Let's go back a second from the controversial topics. Let's talk about a happy marriage. Everyone's favorite topic. How to have a happy marriage. Take it from me, I'm the expert, happily divorced. I'll tell you to have a happy marriage.
Oh, Rabbi.
So in every marriage, you're going to have difficulties, 100%. I mean, he's from Mars, she's from Venus. There's simple interplanetary problems going on over here. They're just not communicating. They have different ways of doing things. It's always like that. So people think that we need to overcome that stuff. We have to compromise. We have to deal with the issues. And the truth is absolutely not like that. It's not like that. There's a bigger picture. There's a purpose to it all. God made the shidduch. You know why? You know why God made you so opposite? I'll give you an example, which is very common. Let's say a woman is very, very kind, very open. She wants to have guests over all the time and buy lots of nice things for them and presents. And the husband's like, my goodness, we can't afford all that. What are you doing? And if it would be up to him, they would never have any guests over, never splash on anybody. Let's just take care of ourselves. And the wife is, let's take care of everybody and everything. And so we'll borrow money. I don't know how we'll do it. So here we have this couple, and they're constantly fighting over how much money to spend for other people. That's just one example. Every marriage has their little points that always come up again and again. And they think that we need to overcome this. Who's in charge? I'm the king of the castle. No, you get these stupid fights. Bang,
it happens.
You get these stupid fights. But at the end of the day, what's it all about? And what we are taught openly is God made this for the purpose of developing our character in the highest way to be godly. To be godly means get out of yourself, recognize somebody else, and come to a unity with that person according to who they are. Come to a unity. And both husband and wife need to do that. It's not, I'm in charge, we spend what I say we spend. And it's not like the woman, I'm in charge, I run the household. There's truth to both sides. But there needs to come a recognition of each other. There's truth in what each one is saying. And they need to come to a unity of how are we going to practically act in a oneness, where we're not with no feeling of compromise. I'm giving in to you. I really hate what we're doing, but
I don't exist, so you
exist. I don't
yeah.
exist, or whatever you say, my dear. That's not a healthy marriage. Nobody wants that. There has to come to a mutual respect and admiration, recognition of what they're saying, and then a unity of action to live in the right way. And that is godliness. That is the purpose of this world. See, the creation of the world, it was created for the purpose of being like Hashem, to be godly, to be kind to others. The greatest level of kindliness is to get out of yourself and connect to another and come to unity with that other. That's why you're like a partner in God in creation, if you could do that. If you can get out of yourself and hear the other, connect to the other, and bring to a unity, you're a partner in what this whole world is about. The creation of the world is for that purpose. So the true truth, this aspect of true truth, which is really hard. Here we're talking in the case where, as it says in Scripture, Al Yamin Shusmo, I know for a fact this is the truth. And they're saying something else. What do you do now? What's your attitude towards that? Let's say I can't afford to have these guests over. My dear, I'm sorry. The answer is no, we can't afford it. Well, that's not the way to deal with it. I mean, sometimes you have to draw a line. You can't go past certain lines, no matter what, bright lines. However, there has to be a recognition of the other person and their feelings and their needs. And what I'd like to suggest over here, on both sides, is the answer to the problem you'll see in the problem itself. Let me go back once to the other side, which is I call the Democrat side of what I consider not investigating the material well enough, not looking in depth, not hearing the other side. I've asked many people about why they hate Mr. Trump so much. And I've taken a poll. And what's really fascinating is the number one answer. I guess like 90 points in Family Feud. The number one answer for why you hate Trump so much is because he speaks in a very derisive way about many people. He speaks negatively towards others. And to me, like, wow, that's amazing. It's amazing to hear you say that after listening to you speak so negatively about him for the past half hour. It's amazing for you to say that the thing that you hate so much, the source of your hatred, is because of the negative way he speaks, because that's what you're doing. And that's the concept in Judaism. But B'muma Paisel, when you're seeing something bad in others, it's a reflection of you. And I highly suggest to everybody, where's the source of your hatred? And do you have that attribute yourself that you're seeing in others? Let's try to take that out of the equation of speaking negatively about others and actually deal with the issue. Let's look at the facts about, is there any actual evil or just a lot of hatred going on? I remember once I told a person, they said something really insulting to me. And I told them, what you're doing, it's a rabbinical prohibition. We don't say words that are hurtful. You're hurting me with your words. And you know what the response was? It's what you call the ibracha. They responded to me, what I just said hurt them. It's a good one. What I'm saying, they hurt me with their words, that's a very hurtful thing to say. And it could be they're right, You got to find a better way to say it. I didn't mean to put you down. I'm just telling you that it's hurtful the way you're speaking.
Oh, it's so difficult.
It's a difficult concept. So that I'm suggesting to all those who are going around speaking hurtful words about others, it was shocking to me. It was a revelation. The source of their hatred and their negative speech is because he's full of hatred and negative speech. Wow. So that's really, you're doing what you're saying is bad. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And this is the hard lesson which I need to learn. We all need to learn. Which is, again, I've heard this from wonderful people, doctors, rabbis, media, saying that the other side, they are evil. It's the source of all evil, possessed by the Satan. Like Christians said about Jews, you don't accept our Lord and Savior because you're possessed by the devil. That's what it is. There's these there's these fins and skins and whatever blocking your eyes and your heart, and you're all possessed and you can't see straight. Well, if you're saying that, it reflects bad on you, not on me. I'm not possessed by anything. So it's actually the same exact thing here, and this is something that we need to be sensitive to. Those people who have studied all the science and data in depth, and they came to a clear conclusion, and they're saying to the others, you're not even reading my studies. You're just jumping to your position based on what you think is right, but it's superficial. You're not studying the actual data. So how do you look at them in a positive way? That's the difficulty, which I want to share tonight, because many people in social media have this difficulty, and they end up speaking really negatively about the other side. So the answer, my friends, to this really difficult question is this second explanation of the true truth, which is the big picture. And it's something that we need to have a sensitivity to, which is, let's go back to Christianity and Judaism, and you'll understand that all Noachites will understand this. The difficulty of a Christian in accepting that his Christianity is false is because you're pretty much telling me my entire life was one big mistake. Nobody can accept that. The gravity of that admission is so overwhelming that at least half of mankind, the half that I would call think with their hearts, that's what Christians say. They think with their heart, not with their mind. Don't tell me intellectually that I'm wrong. I'm thinking with my heart. And that's what the heart is saying. It's not possible we're making a mistake. You know why? Because if it's a mistake, then my whole life is a big lie. That can't be. It's impossible to accept that. And until the Jew understands, the Noachite understands how the Christian can't accept it, because it's exactly what you're calling them. You're calling them, it's evil, it's coming from a bad place. It's really, you're making it a bad place. You're not getting it. But you're telling them that they're wrong. You're making it that their whole life is a huge mistake. I mean, everything I'm doing, I'm putting my life into this. It's all a big mistake. That can't be. I can't accept that. And they don't even realize their mind, it's pure innocence. It can't be. It's wrong. Right. Somebody who's been putting in his whole life into preparing vaccines and making vaccines to make the world a safer place, and you're going to tell him that maybe there's another way to do it, maybe the vaccines is not the best way. You understand that he can't hear such a thing. That's not possible. It's not possible my whole life's work is wrong. I'm not saying it is wrong, but there's a blockage. It's not possible to hear it, because if he's making a mistake, that means his whole life was a huge, terrible mistake of causing harm to others. So it's not possible to hear this. We see this in the Torah, in the story of Joseph. When his brothers, Noachites should relate to this, his brothers came to Egypt, and they didn't recognize him. He had a beard, he was dressed like an Egyptian, he walked like an Egyptian, and and they couldn't recognize him. And there was really, if you go through scripture, I'm not going to go through it now, but there's 100 reasons why anybody with intellect, if you just like, how did that happen? You would realize that's got to be Joseph. It's just so clear. He put them by the table in order, and there's so many things that happen. Why would it not even occur to you that maybe it's Joseph? My goodness. And the reason why, this is what our great teachers tell us, is they couldn't fathom the possibility that what they did those many years earlier, they decided that Joseph was guilty of, what's the word when you go against the king? Of mutiny, or whatever. What is it? Rebellion. Like you go against the rabbi, you want to get rid of him, you want to go mutiny, you want to go against the king. So that's what they said. Joseph saying that they're all going to bow to him was a terrible act of mutiny against Judah, who was the king, and they sat down and they made a conscious decision that he's guilty of treason, of mutiny, whatever it may be, and he has to be either killed or at the end sold. But to think that maybe they were wrong, that means that all these years they did a really evil, terrible thing. Wow. What they did to their brother, what they did to their father, they couldn't accept that. And that's why they had to go through this whole slow process. God in his kindness, Joseph was a messenger to do that, of relating to their difficulty. And that's something, Dan, that you and I and anybody who actually knows all the details of the truth, what we need to do is recognize the difficulty. These people aren't bad people. They're not that big, dark, evil, satanic, demonic, crazy. They're not. They're wonderful. I know them. They're wonderful doctors and lawyers and accountants and wonderful people. Absolutely wonderful people. And they think 100% that they got the truth. Why? Why do they think that? Is it coming from a bad source? No. They can't possibly accept that they're living a lie. That's too difficult for the heart to accept, and it blocks the mind. I'm not interested in hearing anything else. It has to be that my way is right. It's a blockage. And until we recognize that difficulty for them, I would suggest, go to those who are not accepting it and try to show them it's not from evil. Instead of saying it's because you're evil, you're bad, which is what they're saying, that's counterproductive. That's the sign. It's the opposite of that. The problem is because you're looking at that way that they're not going to get it. You need to see them for the beautiful people that they are. And they're looking at the world as a good place. And it's actually this emes la'amita. They're not just looking at the little data, you with your little data. They're looking at the big picture. Are you going to tell me that mankind, we're all making a big mistake? Really? This pandemic is all a farce? That's ridiculous. That's a bunch of quackeries who would say such a thing. We're looking at the big picture, which is the lesson we need to learn. If you want to know the true truth, it's not enough to look at the little picture. Look at the big picture. And the big picture here is that these people are real. And by telling them that they're wrong, you are hurting them really deep. And we're not being sensitive to that. Do you know how painful? I know how painful it is firsthand from being told that your entire life, what you've been doing until now, we don't care about it. It's all wrong. I've been told that by my own students. It's really, really painful to be told that you've been spending the past month and there's hundreds of thousands, millions of deaths, and it's all a big mistake. Nobody can accept that. Your whole life you're living a religion, bowing to a man and praying to a man who doesn't exist. I mean, he's dead, whatever. Nobody can accept that it's all a falsehood. And until we can relate to that difficulty and understand what they're going through, they're never going to change. You'll never come to that unity. As long as you speak to your wife by saying, listen, I have the logic, I got the numbers, we can't afford to have guests, period. If that's the way you talk to your wife, you shouldn't be married. You're not going to have a successful relationship because you don't know how much that's hurting her to hear that. You're not relating to her feelings. There has to be, we're going to find a way because I know how much you need to have guests. We're going to find a way to do it. On the logic, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I feel for you. We got to do it. And as soon as you feel for her and she understands intellectually how difficult it is for you, you'll find a way together to do it in the most prudent way, and you'll have your guests over. In every scenario, it's exactly like that. When you can understand each other, you'll come to a unity. But if we're vilifying each other, speaking with hatred, you'll never get past that hurdle because you're not seeing the big picture. That's not true truth. It's your personal truth. You're not seeing them. They're good people. They're not evil. You're calling them evil. And that's really what you're saying. If they're wrong, then they are evil. They have to be validated. They're not evil. They're thinking the way they're thinking for a reason. I did this with my whole Jewish-Christian conflict resolution. Highly recommended. I go through many Christian tenets and show how there's actually a message from God, not what the Christians are saying, but it's not all a huge, big mistake, everything the Christians are doing. There's some truth in, not the way they're saying it, but there's truth in the Torah to validate things that they're saying. And until we can recognize the other person and validate them as human beings and see the pain that they're going through if they're wrong, then they'll never accept that they're wrong.
Right.
Can you
Rabbi,
hear
you're on a huge point here, Rabbi. You're on such a huge point. Can I weigh in 1 second, or would that be interrupted?
Oh, you could take over. I'm pretty much done. That's all
No,
you're
no,
gonna
no.
say.
Heaven forbid, heaven forbid. But you've brought out something that is so clear and something that is so useful, especially for those that are B'nai Noach. I mean, we're being joined by several people, even in Australia currently, and so it's always good to see them from all the way around the globe. It's only morning for them around there, but in reality, what you've touched on is huge in the sense of why people can't put it aside. And I find that there's the angle of self desire in there as well. And when self desire, I think there's a line crossed when self desire is misguided.
What
Now,
does self-desire mean? What does that word mean?
well, I mean, something an individual wants. When it's a token that they want, when hey, that's great, that's grand, I need that, I want that. When somebody wants that and it's a lack and a longing, like in the Christian concept, the root, the problem I see, and what I've learned from rabbis, there is an actual uncommon definition with their word salvation.
Yes,
Their word.
yes. So, Dana, let me just stop you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
But what you're saying is for sure true, and there's a lot of mistakes, and it's coming from a place of desires, of wants. But what I'm touching on is something even more than that, because recognizing that in the person will still make them feel that they're bad, that it's coming from a place of animalistic desire, so they're not seeing straight. What I'm trying to say is that is hurtful to any person. To be told that is hurtful. They need to have our empathy that their life is not a big mistake. It's not coming from evil. It's not coming from animalistic desires. There's actually beauty in their life, and help them recognize beauty in what they're doing. The only way your child who's like a drug addict, the only way he's going to want to get out of his drug addiction is if you show him that there's purpose in his life. Besides for the drugs that you're on, you're really a wonderful person with tremendous things that you can and are doing, and you could do even better. So let's get off the drugs and do that. These people need to be validated that by their admitting their mistake, admitting their addiction, doesn't vilify them, that what they were doing until now was all bad, all animalistic, all driven by desires, and it's all a huge mistake. But we need to raise them up as human beings, help them recognize the beauty in what they are doing. And in this case, what we're talking about in Christianity, I have a whole lesson series trying to do that. And in the case we're talking now, which is the battle I'm fighting now with my own congregation, with the world around me, is there is a tremendous beauty in conforming to the world picture, having an accepted way of life. They're not bad. They're not bad or evil because they want to conform to what's accepted as the science and the truth. That's not an evil. And even if they would be wrong, it doesn't mean that they're bad. For example, those who did invest a lot of time and money to something that turns out to be a big mistake, I think the government should give them whatever the word is, reparations for it, to help them to get through that. It wasn't in vain. What you did was purposeful. You thought you would be helping. At the end of the day, we don't need the help. We got this virus, not a problem, whatever it may be. But until we recognize the pain and difficulty of accepting that what they've been doing to a large extent was unnecessary or wrong, we have to validate what you're doing was wonderful. And let me tell you this also, Dan, in Judaism, it's such a basic principle that for the effort itself, even if nothing good comes from the product of your labors, you work and work and work for something good, and they never made the vaccine, let's say. So would you say that it's a whole waste of time and money and effort because they never got the vaccine?
Frustrated. Yeah, with that.
Well,
I get frustrated.
It could be in the physical, practical world it was. What a waste. But in Judaism, it was not. What you were doing day and night was trying to help and save mankind. Yes. You're a wonderful person. It could be you're making a mistake. We'll talk about it in a minute. But first, validate what they're doing is incredibly wonderful, even if they're wrong. That's something nobody's willing to do. And that's something that we need to do.
Huge point. Rabbi, that actually gives me a bit of personal peace, because I got to be honest. When I spend hours, weeks, months working on something that is not used fruitfully, it frustrates me. It's like, I don't want to be a part of something that is just going to drain me of time, energy, resources.
Yes.
And then cast it aside, or it doesn't go to market. It's like fruit that doesn't go to market. I don't like to participate, and yet, Rabbi, I saw a tree the other day. I'm looking after a property for somebody, and I went and it's point being, it's being unkept right now. State's got it in hold, but I'm so I'm doing insurance inspections. The point is, peach trees in the backyard, and I go and I look, and this peach tree is starting to break under the weight of its fruit. Right, there's so much fruit on it that is luscious looking fruit, and the winds are bending the branches, and the branches are snapping. Wow. And nobody's attending to it. And I thought, I said to myself, there's nothing more frustrating for me as a man is to try to do all this good work and nobody benefit from it. It doesn't go to market, doesn't seem to be doing anything, and it's frustrating.
But that's exactly
but then I saw the breaking.
Point. We need to validate the effort. The effort, God says this, it's in a verse in Psalms, even to the thoughts, the Hoshvei Shema, you're trying to do good. In God's world, you are considered righteous. And I'm telling to all the Christians out there, there are mistakes. To all religions, I'm not looking down at you. What you're doing is wonderful. You're raising up mankind to be on a higher spiritual level. We all make mistakes, but let's not vilify human beings. They're wonderful people. I understand that your political party or your opinion about vaccines or face masks or hydroxychloroquine, whatever it may be, all these various issues out there, your opinion is not evil and bad. We have to validate and see beauty in it. Only when that's taken off the table, there's no possibility here that there's anybody evil. There's nobody bad here. So then we could start to come to the true truth. But inasmuch as the person is at stake, so it comes out that your whole life was a big waste. It was all nothingness. I actually heard a story after the Holocaust in one of the work camps that there were, these people in these camps, unbelievable, the torture that they went through. There was one camp, I read this in a book, that the prisoners, after they were released, many of them died. Why? What happened after they were released? Well, they spent their day turning a wheel, and they thought that the turning of the wheel was doing some production, whatever it may be, even for the war effort, whatever it may be, they thought they were doing something. After the war, they saw that the other side of the wall, where they were turning the wheel, there was nothing. I mean, all that hard work I did day and night, it was all nothing? And that feeling is so disheartening. It's like, I give up. I get that feeling sometimes. I try and nothing happens. No, we need to recognize that even if there's no actual fruits on your tree, your peach tree is full of fruits, but even if there's no actual fruits, the labor itself is a great accomplishment. It's, where the major accomplishment is in life? It's the decision making. To decide to be good, to decide to be loving and caring, to decide I'm not going to say a hurtful word to another person. I'm not going to think bad about another person. To make that decision, it could very well be that when you get into a discussion, they're going to say something, you're going to react, you'll say something bad. But what's most important is that decision you made beforehand. I don't want to hurt anybody. I want to be a good, loving person. And try your best, make plans to succeed. If you don't succeed, okay, we're all human beings. Every loving father will understand your child made a mistake. What we don't understand is, why didn't you try? Why didn't you even try? Why don't you care? Why don't you want to be good? That's not okay. And that's really what most important is, the validation of goodness in people. Because most people, like the people I'm talking about, where I know 100% that they're making a mistake. But that's not the right attitude. They're wonderful people. And there's a truth in what they're saying. The true truth is not what they're saying, but that's really about everybody except for me. You know why? Why am I the only one with the true truth? Because I'm validating everybody else as being true. Everybody else is seeing falsehood in the other person, and that's not the true truth. The true truth is to see truth in everybody and validate that, admire that, and come to a unity of recognition till you get together with them to a true truth. Until you could see some level of truth in the other person, some validation, some admiration, you'll never get to the true truth. That's in two aspects. It's in studying the data, actually all hear their opinions, see everything that's being said, and to validate that they're not a bad person. It's coming from a good place. Validate their mind and their heart, everyone according to their level. But that's what everybody needs to be recognized. I'm a good person, and I'm an intellectual person. I'm not an idiot. I'm not missing the boat, and I'm not a bad person doing it for selfish motives, which everyone's saying about the other. Have a little recognition, a good outlook towards each other, and guaranteed, if you'll just do that, everyone is listening, do that to your neighbor, to your friend, it will spread more than the coronavirus. It will spread the goodwill. It will spread the smile, the caring, and it will take over the world, and we'll have our salvation. It will happen. The salvation comes from this. I'll share with you a really deep thought. In our tradition, this is a verse, Hayamuna Sitacha. There's a verse that describes the 6 categories of the Talmud, of our oral Torah. The category of salvation, Yeshua, salvation, our tradition is the category of the oral Torah called damages, Nezikin. So I'm going to share with you a Jewish law in the laws of damages, which really defines our life purpose, and it's very applicable to tonight's lesson. There's a law on damages. We learn this in Scripture. Ki huzeh. It's the first Mishnah in Bava Metzia. It's called the second part of Tractate of Damages. The first Mishnah talks about when one person owes the other person, let's say, $100. And he's what's called moida b'mixas. He admits to part of it. He says, I don't owe you $100, I only owe you $50. And we learn from Scripture, God says, in this case, whether it was a loan or it was he was watching something, whatever the case may be, when you admit to part and you deny the other part, you need to take a shvuah. You need to swear. You take a Torah scroll, you swear with God's name that you're telling the truth. And the purpose of this oath that you need to take is, our tradition, is so that the person should admit to the whole. And the great commentators explain this as a major life lesson that pretty much every single human being deals with their whole life. Each and every one of us are admitting to part, and we're partially in denial. Let that sink in. Each and every one of us are partially admitting there is a God, there is a certain way of life which I need to follow to be godly, to be goodly, 100%. I admit to that. But there's part of my life that it's my life and you leave me alone. There's part of my life that I'm in denial, not the river. I'm in denial from, I don't accept godliness in this part of my life. I know better. And each and every one of us does that. And the purpose of our life, what will bring salvation to the world, is get out of that selfishness. Recognize there's godliness in every single part of your life. Don't have any part of your existence that's just you with your animalistic drives and no godliness in it, which is exactly what we're doing. When it comes to this topic and that topic, I'm right, you're wrong. That's what we're like little children. We're like little children. I know the truth. All the time, I get this. I know the truth. Rabbi, you're wrong. Now, let me just point this out again. I ask everybody, you're welcome to correct me if and when I'm wrong. I make loads of mistakes. Please tell me when I'm wrong. But there's basic decency in Judaism to every human being. There's a way of saying it. You say it in a respectful way. You don't, and to a rabbi, to a person of dignity, of authority, you're not even allowed to tell him he's wrong. People don't know this. You need to ask it as a question. You could say, is it possible that we could say otherwise? That's how you speak to somebody, to your parent, to a teacher. We don't say, Dad, you're wrong, you blew it. You don't talk that way. It's disrespectful. So there's a way of arguing. There's a way of expressing yourself. It has to always be with dignity. When you're teaching a student, you could say very pleasantly, I'm sorry, but you're making a mistake over here. You could do that. Just to a teacher or a rabbi, you ask it as or a parent, you ask it as a question. There's guidelines. We can argue, but it's always with that respect. And that's the godliness in that part of our life that we're not doing it. We're talking with narcissism. Everybody's a know-it-all. I got it. I know it. And everybody else is wrong. And you talk down or hurtful words. How is that possible? How does anybody speak a hurtful word to another human being? How do you even think something bad about another human being? He's in God's image. Yes, Biden and Trump. I know everybody hates me for saying that. They're both wonderful people. Why are we full of hatred towards whichever one you hate?
Well, I'm in Canada, Rabbi, so.
Do they have presidents in Canada?
We don't want to talk about our stories.
I know they have hockey over there.
We have ethics questions.
Well, that's really the main point. That one of the main purpose of our life, it's our tradition. The main purpose of our life is to admit. We say every day, first thing a Jew says when you wake up, Moida ani. I'm admitting. Our admitting is not a small thing. It's recognizing that you created me. You gave me life. There's a purpose to my life, and it's pleasant and purposeful. To see that in every aspect of our life. And all of us, myself included, have parts of our life, in as much as I'm still alive, I'm still here, apparently there's parts of my life that I'm still in denial. And I have to bring godliness into that aspect of my life. And that's our entire life, is to admit to the part that we're denying. That is given in a specific case in the laws of damages, but that's what our great teachers tell us. In that law is guidelines for. So I would have been impeached for saying this in the yeshiva. Just tell me the laws of when you take the oath, what you say, and what you do. But there's really beauty and depth. What I'm telling you now is from one of the great Hasidic group, the Ger Hasidim, is Chidushim Harim. He explains this explanation. There's a beauty and depth in the laws of the Torah. Maimonides writes that all the laws are teaching us how to become better, holier, godlier people. So that's one depth in this law of salvation. You want salvation for yourself, for others, from difficulties? Be godly in the part of your life that you're in denial. And one of those aspects, pretty much everyone I know today, is in looking down at others. There's so many cases. Hey, you're not wearing a mask. You are wearing a mask. Fighting. You're voting for him. There's so much. Why you? You could ask a question. Ask me, Rabbi, how come you're not wearing a mask? And we could talk about it. I could talk to you about it for many hours. We could talk about it's a really interesting concept about why we breathe at all and what oxygen is and what carbon dioxide is. There's a lot to talk about. And why would we have this incredible mandate to cover up our smile? I mean, how do you exist without a smile? How do you go on like that?
Well,
that's
we all need
the difficult thing of the whole pandemic. People covering up their smiles. My goodness.
It's a shame. It's a shame, and I think it plays into an effect there, Rabbi. But I think everything you've touched on today makes such beautiful and deep sense. I really hope that those listening caught it. Sometimes it makes me think that the mind misses the mark so much. They think that if they're narcissistic enough, they're actually not thinking about anybody else, so they can't be thinking anything negative. I almost think they switch off in some weird, twisted, broken fashion, but we all have room to grow. I just think people need to stop that you're from the other side of the tracks thinking, that derogatory behavior towards an out group, a different group, somebody different that's not you. I think what you're talking about is definitively pleasant and purposeful. Torah.
Yes.
It's clear compassion, kindness, openness. And I got so much room to grow myself. And
You're alive also. We're all alive. We have room to grow. My appeal to all listeners, please contact me about any of the issues going on in our day that you can't hear the other side. And I'd like to talk to you about it to help you to recognize, appreciate, admire, and even adapt part of that other side that you think is pure evil. You're not getting it. You're only getting the part of the truth. You're not getting the true truth.
Well, are you familiar with the phrase, the devil's advocate? Not to get into any theological, but the notion of the devil's advocate.
True. The devil does not have any advocates.
Well, my point being that people like to play the antagonist when somebody has a point. Somebody brings up a point. I saw this so often. One person brings up a point, person brings up an objection, another point, objection, 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 objection. I mean, there's a way to hammer out, something, into a fashionable piece.
Yes.
We know Hashem's like the potter and we're like the clay.
Yes.
I think what you touched on, I don't even want to dare, try to say anything because I think the message that you brought about that halakha law on damages, that, if somebody partially admits to something but misses.
We all do it. We all do it in our lives daily, all the time. We're admitting to part when we're denying something else. We're not letting God into part of our lives. And this is a major part of our lives, maybe the most important, as it says in the verse, life and death is in your mouth, is in the tongue, the way we eat, the way we speak. We're not living with God in these aspects. To be thinking and speaking in a hurtful way, or to be eating things that's not good for you, that's not godliness. There's parts of our life that are not being done in a godly way. And that aspect, we need to bring God into our lives, into every aspect of our lives. Admit that there is godliness in everything in life.
Rabbi, that's like you say, a law of damages. If we were to look at that in a broader perspective, perhaps we're all damaging to a degree this world.
Yes, 100%. It's not just personal. That's my point. Many people could feel like the lesson we said on politics. We could feel, who am I? I'm going to make a difference. I'm a little guy. No, you are the world. You make a huge difference, not just in yourself and the person you're talking to. You rectify the entire planet. You change everything with your actions. That's why God created one person originally. We need to think of life as that. You are extremely important. You're everything. And your action, the way you speak to your wife, to your neighbor, to your congregants, to whoever you're talking to, you're thinking about them, speaking to them, if you do it in a positive, godly way, you will bring salvation to the world. And if you speak negatively, then the opposite is true. So that's really the place of growth, which is our purpose in life. You want to be a partner to God in creation? Get to the true truth. Get to see truth in the other person that you disagree with. People don't even hear what each other are saying.
Right. You use the phrase emes
la'amitai. Emes, that's in the tractate Sabbath 10a. A judge, a dayan, shadan emes la'amitai. He does the true truth. The truth of the truth. Emes la'amitai. So to get to that level of true truth, you have to go to all the details, hear the other opinion, and put things in the broad perspective. You have to see what's going on. Don't just isolate to that little corner of the story.
Tunnel vision. Always has that byproduct, that perverse byproduct of noble cause corruption. And
then I'll tell you something really, really deep and profound, is it's not just sometimes, it's by definition. Every human being cannot get to the truth of the truth by themselves. God created the Democrats and the Republicans like he created man and woman, like he created these doctors and those doctors, and Jews and Christians, for the purpose of bringing us out of ourselves and recognizing beauty in the others. What we're doing is the opposite. We're choosing to see evil in everybody else, and with our righteous indignation. Now, there is some actual evil in the world, which we must be full of hatred for that, but it's not the norm. It's not our everyday friend and family or neighbor. They're wonderful people, and there's so much hatred going on, and that's really for a positive reason. Hashem is creating the conflict so that we can get out of ourselves, recognize the beauty in this person who's doing something which I think is absolutely terrible, disgusting. He's a grandma killer. I've been called that many times.
No. Well, Rabbi, I'm so moved, to hear you talk today about your incident in Jerusalem with your students. It's huge for you to step forward. I felt
that brokenness of life, my life's work, which I thought it was. I thought that was my life's purpose, of bringing beauty and depth to all the laws of the Torah, to the greatest yeshiva, and to be told by my own students that nobody's interested in that. Whoa! I went into a down tailspin of depression. I was really broken by that. And, here I am on my next stage in life. I hope this is the place where I could bring light to the world. Very unique congregation. I hope I can connect and bring this love
they're
of
fortunate
mankind.
to have you there, Rabbi. I mean, they're beautiful people. I've had the opportunity of you showing me and meeting a couple people that even there watching you now. I know that you're a blessing to the B'nai Noach. Just to share things that we cannot get access to anywhere else. The reality is, unless we hear it from a learned Torah teacher, what do we got out here in the 70 nations? We don't want to go astray on our own imagination. We have
a lot of ability, but you're right. That is rule number one for every Jew and every Noachite is get yourself a rabbi, get yourself a teacher. We're part of a chain. We're part of a link. We go all the way back. I just heard a story. This guy said over a story of a child went to his mother and asked, where do we come from? And his mother said, well, my ancestors go all the way back to the creation of the world where God breathed of himself into mankind, and we have this holiness, we have a soul, and that's where we come from. So then the child went to his father and said, Dad, where do we come from? His father said, well, originally there was a bunch of monkeys, and we all evolved from monkeys. So he goes back to his mother. He says, I don't understand. You said we come from God, and Dad says we come from monkeys. What's going on? And she says, oh, it's not a question. That's his side of the family. I'm telling you our side.
Well, Rabbi, should we wind it down on that note? I mean, that's such a beautiful lesson. There's so much in there that you touched me. I wanted to retort a couple of times in here, and I realized, shut your mouth, Dan. Rabbi's teaching, and there's beauty in it. And I just, I want to thank you personally for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us.
I thank you as well, and I thank the students who come here. The truth is, we are taught that I'm not a big rabbi with thousands and millions of listeners, but every one person that I do touch, which it makes it all worthwhile. Once in a while, someone says, Rabbi, you made a big difference. You really changed things for me. So it's all worth it just for that one person that I do bring a positive effect to them.
Well, you've had some thank yous here, even from Australia. Wendy Shepherd down in Australia says,
Wow.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. And
even Australia.
Yeah. We actually have another folk, Davey down there in Australia joined us as well. We got our friend Zakia down in South America. We've got people in North Carolina, people in Arkansas. There's people all over the planet that do pop in from time to time to watch at the Noahide World Center. And I'm so thankful to them in Jerusalem for allowing me to broadcast on their station. I think they put some restrictions because of the people in Russia, and we're getting a little disappointed. They were getting our notifications that we went live so often, and so all I can say is we're it's just a joy that they let us broadcast. But the biggest joy I get is that you share genuine Torah with us, and you share it always like in this pleasant and purposeful manner. It means so much. It gives me the hope to go out there and make the world a better place. And
you can, and you will.
Well,
Just
but
make
even
that
today,
decision. Choose life, my friends. In the vote's coming up November 3rd. You know who to choose? Choose life, which means stop with the negativity. Choose to be positive. Whatever it will be, we're going to choose life. Choose positivity. Choose goodness. I don't know which president to choose, but that's what God says to do. Choose life. And that when you do that, Dad, you do make the world a better place. Not just you can, you do. All the time. Make the right choices of life. That's what we're here for.
Wow.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
on that note, we're going to sign out, Rabbi, and we hope that we can broadcast again with you. I know it's always at your schedule, and as Hashem wills. So thank you, Rabbi. Till the next time, folks, we're going to sign out for now, and we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.